try to hold it, but I know I cannot stay, and I wait, and I wait, and I wait, and I wait. I only die to come alive. It's known to me. I hope we'll see the time that I am aligned with all things. The light I see is guiding me beyond the grave. The roles I played will fall away in all divine grace. And I wait, I try to solve it, but I know it cannot break. I want to hold it, but I know I cannot stay, and I wait, 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 and I wait.
Come and sit in the circle. That was so great. Thank you so much, Lakshmi, for starting us off. Lakshmi is a songwriter, singer, and known for capturing themes such as activism, personal growth, and love in her layered, intimate music. Beyond, she has like a lot of cool musical talents, but beyond her musical work, Lakshmi is committed to advocate for girls' rights and climate activism. As an ambassador for Plan International, she speaks out against sexual violence, inequality, highlighting the profound connection between gender equality and the climate crisis. With her platform, she moves people and mobilizes them to stand up against injustice. Thank you so much, Lakshmi, for starting us off. Beautiful to have art from someone that's young and just impactful and meaningful. So thank you so much. And we'll hear a little bit more from you a little bit later. So thank you, everyone. My name is Rose Lenny, and I'm the secretary for the Committee of Spirituality, Values, and Global Concerns, New York. And we welcome you all here for our celebration end of year gathering, shared light, shared dignity. I'm really happy to see you all in person or online. Danilo, hi. He's missing out on all the action, all the fun. But thank you so much for coming. I know it's a little bit chilly in the weather, but we're really excited to have you here and to use this time to really motivate us and remind us of like the work that we did this year and where should we go for the next year. So thank you. And to start us off, I'm gonna hand it over to the co-chair of the CSVGC, good friend of mine, Sabita, here.
Friends, not Roman's countrymen. I'm so happy to see all of you here this afternoon. I prepared a fancy speech and I'm thinking, should I be saying this or should I just greet all of you? It's pretty nice. So welcome to this Human Rights Day celebration. Today is, you cannot hear me?
You have to speak up loud.
Okay.
You want a mic? Oh, there is a microphone.
Oh.
You can speak up also.
Yeah, but yeah, all right. Today, as we know, is Human Rights Day itself. Oh, wonderful. And so special greetings on this day. And of course, it's also our holiday celebration. So today, as we gather to honor shared light, shared dignity, the world's attention turns once again to the protection of human rights and the preservation of the human spirit. In a time when global circumstances continue to challenge these essential values, we are called not to retreat, but to deepen our commitment to remain grounded in our own sense of worth and to uplift the dignity of others. This begins with recognizing a fundamental truth that we are spiritual beings navigating a human experience on a shared planet. With this awareness comes a moral responsibility to ensure that every individual enjoys a life of dignity, respect, peace, and security. The NGO Committee on Spirituality, Values, and Global Concerns, New York, together with our co-sponsors, the Brahma Kumaris, and Julia is here, and of course myself, the Baha'i International Community, Rosalie is here, and maybe there might be others joining, the Legion of Goodwill, Danilo, our chair, and Bruna and Felipe, and the International Federation of Women in Legal Careers, Denise, who unfortunately couldn't make it today, remain dedicated to advancing spiritual principles and universal values. These values serve as catalysts for equality, fairness, and compassionate engagement among peoples everywhere. We honor the interconnectedness and interdependence that binds all forms of life, and we affirm our shared collective responsibility to one another. That has brought us here together. So bear with me a little more. Aligned with the preamble of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, which reaffirms faith in fundamental human rights, in the dignity and worth of every human being, and in the equal rights of men and women, we strive to integrate spirituality and values in our thoughts, in our words, and in our actions. And many of you would know how challenging this is, right? Bringing it to the UN. But by doing so, we contribute to sustainable solutions and help nurture a more harmonious global community. Throughout this year, we have worked diligently towards this purpose. And there are many of you here, like Jillian from the Red Dot, and so many of you, Ambassador Chowdhury, Guru Dilip, and all of us, work very hard, Beth. Even as we acknowledge that the ideal of a truly harmonious world remains a work in progress. Yet, gatherings like today remind us of the abundant wisdom and lived experience each one of us carry, like a great Santa sack filled with insights, stories, and light. Let us reflect on these experiences of upholding dignity. Let us open our hearts to listen to one another and allow the joy, the light, and the love to fill this space and to ripple outward into the world. As we celebrate Human Rights Day today, may we do so with gratitude, compassion, and solidarity. As we approach a new year, let us embrace the opportunity to spread our wings once more, to serve with renewed determination, bringing hope and illumination to all whose lives we touch. So happy holidays, happy Human Rights Day, and let us celebrate. Thank you very much for coming today, and we will move forward back over to. Okay.
Thank you, Sabita, for that beautiful essay, speech. Sorry. It's finals week, so I'm like, all my cables are crossed. But now we're gonna welcome another dear friend of mine to lead us in a meditation, in a reflection exercise, Julia from the Brahma Kumaris.
Thank you. I will try and not to make this another essay.
Sorry.
But oh yes.
Oh, yes.
It's like passing the baton here. Well, the talking stick, as they say, right? Is that okay?
Yes.
Yes. So we have the Brahma Kumaris a few years ago now, and I think it was in celebration of the 60th anniversary of the Declaration of Human Rights. We wrote a book called Human Rights, Spiritual Rights. And so what I thought, because as Ambassador Chowdhury was saying to me today, when I said, Happy Human Rights Day, and he said, well, is it so happy? And it's not human rights and spiritual rights, it's human rights, spiritual rights. So I thought I would just read in a reflective manner, and so this is kind of like a meditation, but I'm going to read it slowly, but just for us to reflect on the declaration of the different articles. It covers so many areas, and I think there's 28 of them. I'm not going to read them all. You'll be happy to hear. But I've just tried to pick out a few across the different themes of the Declaration of Human Rights. So I'm going to read the declaration, the article, and then the spiritual right. And there's a little bit of an introduction. So I'll just ask you all to go inwards and just contemplate on what's being shared. The spiritual principles that operate in the world are extremely subtle and quiet, but have a continuous influence and a powerful and lasting impact on our lives. The discussion of human rights gains a new dimension when we recognize that all human beings are fundamentally spiritual beings, and that human rights and spiritual rights are closely related. Article 1 of the Human Rights Declaration. All human beings are born free and equal in dignity and rights. They are endowed with reason and conscience and should act towards one another in a spirit of brotherhood. The spiritual right. The original, real, non-physical form of every being is of light. Each being is a soul and is naturally endowed with dignity and worth. The recognition of the relationship of brotherhood lies in the realization that we are all souls entitled to the same rights. Article 2. Everyone is entitled to all rights and freedoms set forth in this declaration without distinction of any kind, such as race, color, sex, language, religion, political or other opinion, national or social origin, property, birth, or other status. Furthermore, no distinction shall be made on the basis of political, jurisdictional, or international status of a country, territory to which a person belongs, whether it be independent, trust, non-self-governing, or under any other limitation of sovereignty. And the spiritual right. Every soul is entitled to the experience of its spiritual rights of love, happiness, peace, and belonging, regardless of caste, color, creed, or gender, and regardless of the political or social circumstance in which he or she is living. Article 6. Everyone has a right to recognition everywhere as a person before the law. Spiritual right. Every soul recognizes the universal law of love. To see the person as a legitimate other is the spirit of the universal law of love. Article 13. Everyone has the right to freedom of movement and residence within the borders of each state. Every soul has the freedom of movement in their thoughts, ideas, and feelings. Article 18. Everyone has the right to freedom of thought, conscience, and religion. This right includes freedom to change his religion or belief, and freedom either alone or in community with others, and in public or private, to manifest his religion or belief in teaching, practice, worship, and observance. Every soul has a right to self-realization, a mind that is free to think in a domain of benevolent thoughts, a voice of conscience that speaks of fairness, and a nature that embodies the religion of peace. Article 21. Everyone has the right of equal access to public service in his country. Every soul responds to the right of equal access as being seen and appreciated. Article 25. Motherhood and childhood are entitled to special care and assistance. All children, whether born out of wedlock, whether born in or out of wedlock, shall enjoy the same social protection. Every soul comes into the world trusting that it will be loved and cared for. Article 29. Everyone has duties to the community in which alone the free and full development of his personality is possible. Every soul gives and takes from the community in which it lives, and so the quality of the community is shaped by the quality of the soul's personality. And then finally, to go back to Article 24, everyone has a right to rest and leisure, including reasonable limitation of working hours. Is everybody hearing that? Limitation of working hours and periodic holidays with pay. So every soul refreshes itself in silent retreat to rest, reflect, recharge, and renew.
Thank you so much for that. And now, Danilo, do you want to say some words?
Yes, my dear Roselini, can you hear me?
Yes.
You cannot imagine how beautiful this room is seen from afar. I'm connecting here from São Paulo, from the Legion of Goodwill's headquarters, and I could not miss the fun of joining you in that special celebration, because today we are talking about human rights in connection with what the United Nations highlighted as this year's theme, which was human rights, our everyday essentials. And it's so important when we talk about rights that we remember that we need to connect the humankind in fulfilling everyone's spiritual and moral duties first. Because if everybody fulfilled their spiritual and moral duties, there would be no need for us to remember about the rights, because no one would ever be left behind. And the work of this committee, the Committee on Spirituality, Values, and Global Concerns, is a work of great enthusiasm. And I see here faces of people, friends, members of this committee, champions who are connected in a very active agenda to help the United Nations to uphold these important values that are a very winning proposition for the entire humanity. And that requires work. And this work is an expression of these collective moral duties that we're talking about. So I just wanted to say thank you, not just for being here today, but thank you for supporting the work of this committee throughout this successful year that we just finished with this celebration today, inviting everyone to have not just a very light holiday time, but a very productive and very proactive year of 2026 in that agenda. So thank you very much. Happy holidays, everyone. And let's participate of this beautiful ceremony together. I'm very glad to send you all our love from Brazil to you in New York.
Thank you. Thank you.
That was amazing. Thanks, Danilo. We miss you for logistical reasons mostly. He's really good at that. So now we're going to move forward with the program, and we're going to welcome a friend of the committee who has been here before. If you were here last year for our Breaking Bread, you'll know a little bit more about her. We have Laura Sims, an award-winning performer, writer, educator, advocating for storytelling as compassionate action for personal and community transformation. She performs worldwide, combining ancient myth and true life story for adult and family audiences. She is the artistic director of the Han Christian Andersen Storytelling Center in New York and the founder of the Center for Engaged Storytelling. I'll leave it at that because it's very long. So thank you, Laura, for being here. The floor is all yours.
Yeah, I think so. Actually, can I borrow your pile of spiritual rights? It's so beautiful to see all of you and to know what you devote your lives to. There's really enough goodness in this room to illumine the world. So I've been asked, my job is to tell you stories. But my real task is to have those stories bring up in you memories, associations, images, stories from your life that come forth from the stories, because a story is not something that is fixed. It's actually an occurrence, and your response is the real life of the story. So there are two tiny stories that I want to tell you that are from the San people. These are really the oldest tribal peoples living in our world today. And the beautiful, astonishing stories, and like any great story or any real culture, these stories that seem to be from so long ago are really those things that reach into what is ceaselessly present in existence. So there was a time, they said, you're following that? I don't want you to be too serious now.
Once upon a time.
Yes, which is real time. Anyway, there was a time when in the world, everything was gray. There was no day or night. And everything was illumined by fires that people created between villages and groups. But time passed and those fires went out. And there was a great sorrow. There was a great hunger. And people were coming up with solutions or arguing amongst themselves. And some people fell into despair. But there was a little girl of that earliest race who was so filled with curiosity. And she went walking. And there, where people passed by the hearth fires thinking that there was ash with no life, she saw the tiniest, imperceptible ember. And she put her hand in the ash. She lifted it up and she threw it into the sky and made the stars. So, for the first time in a long time, there was dawn. And then the sky was bright. And at night, even in the great dark of night, there were stars. The second story actually is also, you don't have to clap, just take it in because your part is coming soon. This is also a sound story, and it was one day I was just feeling desperate, and sometimes when I feel desperate, I open a book like an oracle and hope it's short. But this story I loved so much, and this is for all of you. So there was a hunter, and it was his job to feed his village. So he went out and he found food for everyone, but he was way in the bush and it was dark. And so he decided to sleep and return home in the morning. And he put the food beside him and he slept. In the middle of the night, a dog came by, smelled the food, ate everything, and left. So the hunter woke up. Oh, the food is gone. He thought, there are others as hungry as I am. I will go and find more food. So the other story that you're all right? It's a surprise to me to tell this story because we think of it as a children's story. You probably know it, but it is a very, 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 very old story. These fairy tales came 5,000, 70,000 years ago, and the images were so powerful, they're like a hand or voice reaching out to us. And there's a backstory to this story, which someone inside the story will tell. And it's not that long. There was a widow who lived with her son. She was very poor. And all they had was a moon-white cow that gave milk. It happened that one morning the cow gave no milk. 3 mornings the cow gave no milk. So the boy, her son named Jack, said, I'll go look for a job. And she said, you have looked so often, but there are no jobs left. And the mother said, take our milk white moon cow and sell the cow in the market. At least we will have food for a few days. So he went walking with the moon white thin cow. And then an old woman, or maybe it was an old man, but you couldn't tell, with a funny cap that came to a point and bent on the side, said, hello, Jack. And Jack was surprised that this strange old one knew his name. And the old one said, what are you doing with that white cow? And he said, I'm selling it in the market because we have nothing to eat. And the old one said, I will give you good fortune. I'll exchange 5 beans for the cow. Jack said, beans for a cow? He said, these are not ordinary. If you plant these beans in your garden, then you will have food, you will have good fortune, you will have all the things that have disappeared from our world. And Jack was interested. So he exchanged the cow. But you can imagine that when he got home, his mother said, Jack, you traded the white cow for 5 beans? And Jack said, but the old one said that there would be abundance, good fortune. Oh, you're a fool. And she took the 5 beans and she threw them out the window. And my friends, that's the way it works in a story. The logical things often are not the solution, because those 5 beans landed in the garden. She sent Jack to sleep without food. But when Jack woke up in the morning, his room was filled with fragrance and light. And he looked out the window, and there growing, you know what was there, don't you? What was it? Exactly. You see, you haven't forgotten. There was a beanstalk, and it was flowering, verdant, folded round. It was like a ladder that went from beneath the earth all the way up beyond the clouds. It was so astonishing. Jack thought, God, that old man knew something. He was right. And he climbed up the ladder of the beanstalk. And when he got there beyond the clouds, there was a vast meadow, and in the distance, a huge house. And when he came close, in front of the huge house was a huge woman. She was a giant, Tess. And she said, you better leave, because my husband is an ogre, and he likes children. He likes to capture them, imprison them, and eat them. And he said, okay, I'll leave, because that doesn't sound really that good, but I'm so hungry and I smell some food. I'll give you breakfast first. So he ate. And then he wanted to leave, but the whole earth was shaking. And the ogre's wife said, hide in the oven. Into the oven he went, and into the house came the ogre. And the ogre said, you know what he said, but I'm not going to do it. Anyway, I smell a young one. Now, the ogre then was fed by his wife. He ate a lot. And like very greedy people, what he liked to do after he filled his stomach without considering anybody else was to count his gold, of which he had a lot. And meanwhile, Jack saw this. And Jack thought, wow, that's a lot of gold, but I'm really in trouble because he's a giant. And so Jack watched. And you know, after he counted the gold, he fell asleep. And so Jack thought, I'm getting out of here. And he grabbed a handful of gold, raced as fast as he could down the beanstalk, went home, gave his mother the gold. She was astonished. She said, so that old person was telling the truth. And now they had gold, so they had food. They had so much that they could feed anyone who needed it. But it ran out. And so Jack said, well, maybe I should go up again. The mother said, be careful. Mothers are always warning us. And up he went. Same thing happened again, this time in the oven. When the giant had eaten his full, the giant called his wife and ordered her to bring a hen. Jack thought, that's interesting, just a hen? But then the giant said, lay an egg. And there came out a golden egg. 1, 2, 3, and he piled them up nonchalantly among all the other golden eggs and then fell asleep. So Jack, of course, stole the hen. He did have a moment in which he thought, should I take a golden egg or a hen? But he's the hero of our story. He took a hen. And so he went down, he gave his mother the hen. She said, a hen? And he said, hen, lay an egg. And out came a golden egg. There were so many golden eggs. They could feed so many people. They could repair people's houses. They could buy clothes for those who needed it. But after a while, it wasn't that they needed anything, but Jack was so curious. And he went up again. The same thing happened, except that the giant arrived so early that he didn't have time to get in the oven, so he hopped into a copper pail and put a cover over it and looked out. But this time, after the giant ate, he demanded a harp. And Jack was surprised because this was a harp that had no strings. And no one played it, but the music was incredibly beautiful, too beautiful to keep the giant awake. So he fell asleep. And for the third time, you still with me? It's a contemporary story, isn't it? He took the harp and he ran down the beanstalk. But as he was coming down, the giant had awakened, realized that the same person who took the hen that laid the golden eggs and the gold was this young man who he had smelled. So he raced after him, and when the giant's feet were hanging out from beneath the clouds, Jack arrived down on the ground with a harp that had no strings, and he said, Mother, mother, take an axe. And she took an axe and she chopped until the beanstalk fell to the ground, and the body of the giant fell crashing to the ground, becoming great stones that made a huge mound on the earth. Now he had gold from the hen, and they had music of the soul that needed no strings. And Jack and his mother lived well, as did everyone else, as it should be. And one day Jack said, you know, Mother, I should see if I could find that old person and thank them, and maybe even buy back the milk moon cow. And so he went in search. He didn't know where to go, but there was the old one. Jack, I'm glad to see you. How's things been? And he said, well, we've had such good fortune. Of course you've had good fortune. And then the old one told the old story of Jack and the Beanstalk that's never in any children's book whatsoever. That before this realm, before the ogre massacred everyone, and out of greed caused so much pain and injustice, the great parents of Jack's mother had lived in this great house And in that time, there was so much abundance and so much kindness and so much joy. And it was Jack, because of his incredible innocence, his creativity, his love and curiosity, that he brought back to the world all the treasures that had been stolen and kept by one. Now, after the old one told this story, Jack thanked him, and he gave him back the milk moon cow. And that cow fed the entire world. And the truth is that that's how things are in the world. And what was separate just became one. And for a long time, everyone lived happily ever after. Take a moment. If there's an image from one of these stories or an association or a memory that came up, just let it rise up. And you're just going to turn to a partner next to you. And just tell them something that you remember from your life that comes to mind because of this story. And we're asking you to keep it to essence, but one person speak for 3 or 4 minutes, and then your partner will tell you what they recall. Don't worry if it's a thrilling or important story, and not every story has a conflict, but just a memory that you have from your own life that comes to mind. And then maybe we can share some of them in a very special way. So turn to a partner, and if you don't have a partner, raise your hand and we'll give you a partner, because occasionally arranged marriages work, especially when they're short term. So, okay, all right, so yes.
Yeah, because I'm like, that's not what I thought, but yeah. But also, yeah, different food, so. Yeah. The first story is
Take another minute or two, and if your partner hasn't told you something, then invite them to tell you.
Laura.
A minute or two.
Now, what kind of
Okay, I think I'm going to bring you back. I've seen cell phones pop in and people traveling. Oh. Thank you. I want to bring everyone back. Stories lean on stories, so we could go on and on and on. And just something remarkable just happened. Tell me your name again. Jabba, Isaac. What? Isaiah Chabad? Chabala. Sorry, my ears are very old. I'm so sorry. Just told me that these are the stories that he grew up with, that the San are his people. And I said, oh my goodness, I'm so sorry. And he said, no, you brought me all the way back. So perhaps you would like to, so what I'd love to do is really, this was Sabita's idea, and I think it's a great one because she always has wonderful ideas. That if you really were moved by a story that your partner told, that you could retell it. in third person, so and so, this happened to them. And, but I'm going to ask you, Isaiah, to maybe say something first about what it was like to hear those stories.
Well, thank you so much. This is a wonderful opportunity. And basically to thank you, because I believe the spirit of my ancestors and the highest spirit touched your heart to share and to recall the stories that you did from the San people. The San people, from those of you who do not know where they are the oldest indigenous living people. And they come from Southern Africa. You know, the countries they are currently now dispersed, spread over South Africa, Botswana, Namibia, Southern Africa. I'm from Zambia, so I was born in Zambia, but we share the same, and I've often spoken about it, the Ubuntu philosophy, the traditional, the ancient spirituality, underscoring our interconnectedness of humans, underscoring principles such as love, generosity, compassion, care, reconciliation, and forgiveness, underscoring that because of our interconnectedness, our interdependence, we all have a responsibility to care for one another, regardless of our ethnicity, our religion, our race. So it's that holistic world view, which still very much is needed now. So as I was listening very intently, again with, I say, guidance of the spirits of my ancestors, like the first two stories that you shared, in fact, all of them, all these principles that I've spoken to were very evident in those stories. So thank you so much once again.
Yes, it was interesting because I was sharing with Isaiah about when we were kids. There's 4 of us in our family, and we used to have an electric fire that used to have red rays that came out of it. And we'd sit around upstairs when our parents were asleep, and downstairs, and we were supposed to be asleep. And we would tell each other stories, and we would laugh, and it was such a beautiful experience, just the children together. And Isaiah was saying, well, when he was a kid, he had a grandmother, and they had a real fire, and they had a real fire outside, and their grandmother used to tell them stories of all these things, of all the San people. I thought, well, okay, a little bit better perhaps than an electric fire, but same thing.
So maybe we could just pass it around, and if you want to say something, take it, and if you don't want to say anything, that's okay too. Well, I don't want to throw
say
it.
something
Yes.
in the connection with Julia said about grandmothers. I think there is a big role of grandmothers in telling and continuing the stories. Children listen to them more than their parents. And there is a group I am associated with, the Grandmothers for Peace. They inculcate these stories and share these stories just to be good human beings. Their grandchildren, grandson, granddaughters, everybody. So this is a wonderful thing. And when we were talking, Dilip, Guru Dilip ji, we were sharing the thought that in South Asia, playing and sharing stories and gathering together, when you get tired, you get together, sit there and start telling stories. or anecdotes. And all these things continue. And I was telling him that on Human Rights Day, we can say that on the Convention on the Rights of the Child, right to play is a big right that is for children. I think that is also important. So storytelling goes as part of the play, and that goes on. And so this is a wonderful way of remembering. And I remember this is another side of the story. We were discussing about the challenges faced by the small island states, small island countries. And there were delegations from many island states. And we were discussing in the UN term, this should be done, conflict resolution, this, that. And one delegate from Fiji took the floor and said, what you are saying now, we have been discussing this way for ages. My grandfather's grandfather were all following this community approach to resolve our crisis. And you are now talking in the United Nations about that kind of problem solving, conflict resolution. But we did that in our communities for ages. So in that also, people learn from each other and continue. And the story, either you call it a story or you call it a lesson, it continues in the society from generation to generation.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Another memory or?
Yes, Jason.
Oh, yeah. That's okay. I'll pick up from there. If everyone can hear me in the room.
No, bring it. Laura.
Oh, sorry. Sorry. I didn't follow the rules.
There's no rules.
Yeah, there are no rules.
The rule is there's no rules.
The rules are-
So hi everyone, my name's Jillian and I think this idea is really beautiful because actually something did spark in me and it was part of story 2. So story 2 talked about the farmer and how he lost the food, and something that I relate to is I lose things pretty often. But the way I console myself is that I've lost it because someone else needs it more than I do. You know, so it's happening for a reason to me, but it's also happening for a reason to somebody else. The skeptic in me says I'm trying to make myself feel good, but I also think it's calming for the soul when you don't feel guilty that you lost something, and maybe it's a gift to somebody else. So thank you for story 2 because it definitely resonated with me.
Nice, very nice.
Please.
I know Jack and the Beanstalk was a very long story, but there's such a big lesson in that, you know. Somebody, whoever, the ogre, stole our dignity. This is how I saw it. Stole our dignity. We had it before. We lost it to the ogre, the big bad guy. And this is what I like about the fairy tales. There's always a big bad guy and then the good one, right? And there we were, we had everything, and then the big bad guy came and took everything. And in this case, our dignity, which is the most subtle and invisible thing, so intangible. We didn't even know we lost it to the big bad ogre until we end up in a world like we have today, where now everybody's talking about, right, making the world a better place. But who stole it? Who took away our happiness? Maybe not who, but what, or whatever. And so meeting today and talking about stories and shared dignity, let us be like Jack and reclaim what is ours, right? Reclaim our dignity. And even though it was a long story, but it was, that's how I saw it. It's time for us to reclaim our dignity and also to help each other, of course. You know, we can't just do it for ourselves. It's not going to work, right? We have to share, we have to help each other to reclaim. And on the last note, you know, Jillian is also on the committee for the NGO CSOC-D. And we worked together a lot this last time at the Doha Summit on social development. And somehow it's social development, right? So it's all about human dignity, really, doing things to uphold or lift people's dignity up. So I want to say congratulations. So, you know, I didn't get to meet her since Doha, which means since November. So this is my opportunity to say congratulations. It was a success.
Thank you so much. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Just bring it over.
Thank you to our storyteller this afternoon. But you know, as I was sitting with my next door Daisy, we were talking about stories. And lastly, I shared with her last night, my mother is such a great storyteller. And she tells the stories that helps me to be part of an experience that I've never had from my great-grandparents and things that happen in the village, because I am from Guyana. And my aunt died about 3 years ago, and she said, you did not listen to me to take the tape to find out more things about your father's family. My grandfather was a detective. So you imagine the stories that he told us. But those stories were life lessons, that it was about conflict, it was about unity and resolution, solving problems. And today I can go into my toolbox, and when I have certain situations, I would remember my grandfather's words and how I can resolve it. And that's what we were talking about, those stories that can help us, lessons learned, and what are the takeaways that we can transcend whatever has gone on, and we can share with others, we can resolve and come back together for unity. So storytelling is such a powerful tool. It's emotional. And when we tell stories, what do we do? What do we use? We use all of our 5 senses. We feel, we smell, we touch. And sometimes it takes us down those roads or memory lane where we may feel sad. We may hear a story that evokes a memory and helps us to maybe cry and maybe cleanse and say, well, I may not do this again, whatever it is. But it brings a form of connection and unity and help us to go in different directions in our lives. And so storytelling is a really wonderful way. We all have a story to tell in our lives, that something has happened in our lives, whether it's positive or negatives, and that someone can learn, they can grow. And as I heard here today, that what was stolen from us, that we have the power to reclaim it. We don't have to sit and complain, but what we can do something about it and get it back in order. All right, so storytelling is great.
Thank you very much, friend. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Beth Blissman, or Bliss Woman, if you're tremendously inclusive, or Bliss Person. I'm a friend of the BKs and a friend of the Baha'i. I have the pleasure of even serving for just 1 year with the Committee on Spirituality, Values, and Global Concerns, a long time ago, pre-pandemic, a whole lifetime ago, it feels like. I'm the UN representative for the US-based Loreto community, and what you were sharing, my friend who I do not know, who was conversing with Guruji, inspired me to think about how we take these stories and how we take the art, the fine art of storytelling, and apply it to the United Nations challenges. So I just led a virtual delegation of over 75 people to the climate talks from the comfort of the Hazel Henderson Center in St. Augustine, Florida. And it was so interesting watching from afar and having some friends who were there on the ground. And fortunately, one friend who spoke Portuguese because she had gone to school in Belém, Brazil. And cheers to the country of Brazil for hosting the climate talks. I'm sorry Danilo is not online anymore, so please convey my appreciation to him and his entire country. And one thing that emerged this year that Brazil made sure made it into the climate talks was the concept of multirão. I don't know if anyone here speaks Portuguese who could describe it better than I'm going to try to. Yes, wonderful. I'm going to hand it over to you. But this concept of multirão, if I understand it, is collective coming together to achieve something, right? Yes, and what's the role of storytelling in this concept of multirão? Because they were promoting it as it's time for the world to come together, recognize we only share one planet and we need to act together to solve the challenges. But tell us more, my friend.
What is the word that you use? Multirão. Multirão.
Multirão.
Wow. Multirão. Okay, I'm gonna ask a help.
Brazilian Portuguese.
I'm gonna ask the help of my friend here to see if he knows this word.
No.
Because maybe it's multirão.
Mutirão.
Mutirão.
Yeah.
Mutirão. Okay. So mutirão is a word to represent a group of people that are actually doing things together. But it has to be in a way that is very quick. So saying that I need help to pick up this table here. So I need a mutirão right now just to pick up this table and you're gonna help together. So I think this is what you're trying to say, like putting people together and help together and make this quick and in a way that we connect to each other. Is that true? Is this, did I help?
So I think let's just see if there's one or two more. And
May I just finish with the idea that came forth of storytelling? It's not going to be quick. I mean, the climate crisis is big. But one other thing they did with this concept of multirão was a global ethical stock take. Has anyone heard of the global ethical stock take? Thank you, Jillian and Sabita. I know there was one here in New York, right, that some people may have taken part in. So maybe these same groups that sponsored this event may wish to sponsor a global ethical stock take for the winter or the spring. Just a thought about action that might flow from today's gathering. Thank you.
Kiki, you want to share anything? Oh, Kiki. Because you know, there's only so many stories. That's why.
Especially now. Okay. Well, as you know, we're in the southernmost Caribbean. So obviously this is a time when you have 20% of the US naval fleet there. And we are in a state of jitters. You might say that. I was going to talk about Jack and the Beanstalk, though, because I remember that story. I remember being read that story as a child. And what I was telling my friend here is what I most remember about the story is the growing beanstalk, because the pictures of the beanstalk were amazing, that this little bean, and then it would start to climb up the stalk, and the leaves were enormous, and it was huge, and it was so abundant. And it was a really amazing thing to think about, a small seed becoming something so much larger and so much more abundant. But it was funny because you asked us to say what we learned from our friend, and my friend said what he remembered was running away from the ogre, having to run away each time. But you know, it just shows how children take in information. And we're living in a particularly dangerous time for children. And you mentioned that, the rights of the child. And our children are incredibly unhappy, our adolescents, they're very lonely, and they have a lot of mental issues because they don't live in a community anymore. And, at the same time my mother was reading me stories of Jack and the Beanstalk, I could go out, I could ride my bike. There were no parents having to follow me around who were fearful that something would happen because all of our neighbors for 4 blocks, were watching out for us. So I think we need to tell the stories again about the benefits of living in that community. And I think it's very hard in an individualistic society, which is founded on, at this point, not capital by itself, but extractive and predatory kinds of capitalism, that community is not important. And there's just one last thing I'd like to say, because somebody spoke about work at the very beginning of this event. And it's funny because the nature of work is clearly going to change with all of the technological developments and in particular AI. And so I was looking up work the other day because I was thinking about what is going to be the new word for our labor and our efforts. Because if you look up work, toil, the sweat of my tears, drudgery, everything about it is something unpleasant. And I think that we need to rethink what it means for human beings to collaborate, to co-create, to do things together, multi-drow, in a hurry when the table is falling down to come and pick it up. And so I think that this is one of the things that we have to think about as we tell our stories, because language is so important.
I wanted to, thank you so much. Because I raised my hands for myself and for her because I enjoy her story. But then also, you mentioned, my name is TK Nakagaki. What do you call it? I used to be the Buddhist, I'm a Buddhist practitioner, but I was president of the Buddhist Council of New York when I met Lola for long ago. And I still remember enjoying, she came many times for the Buddhist Council of New York. And so that's why I saw her name today. So I have to come and say hello. But then I'm also the president of Heiwa Peace and Reconciliation Foundation of New York. And I really enjoy this story part. And then before I forget, I just wanted to mention that Japanese words of the hataraku sounds actually probably better than any others, because hata means the other in one way. I mean, there's a different way of we say hataraku means hata is the other people, raku is make them relax, so make them joy. So to work means make other people happy. So that's more like probably the sense of what I do is not for me, but it's whatever I do is make other people happy. So that's very other. So that's the kind of things. But also, as I talked to her, I was just thinking of the particular story of chasing by that's one thing. But at the same time, I was thinking before. They have more stories, I feel like. Nowadays, so many computer, even like AI and everything, story, from the school, story is missing, from wherever the place, story goes somewhere. But then I think the story itself is really bringing like a real feeling, together with all the senses, 5 senses, 6 senses, and so forth, all together. And actually, I was reading a little bit of old text, the Buddhist text. How do they teach Buddhism to the Japanese people? But then when they started, that's called well, three treasures, basically that picture of the three treasures. But there's a picture is not found, but yet storytelling actually, because that particular teaching of the Buddha is basically the story, like a story of Jataka, former life of the Buddha, and how compassionate he was, and then so that's why he was able to become a Buddha, like a way. But then those are simply the stories of how people can be dedicate their life for the others. And so I thought it was something connected all of a sudden today for the story and how important those story could be. Maybe AI may not be able to bring this part, but then we could be stories the way to maybe as a humanity bring it back, and then at the same time, So at least I just wanted to share that things. So I thank you very much for sharing.
Hi, everyone. My name is Serena. So Hemant and I were actually both talking about how the last two stories, so the one about the hunter and about Jack and the Beanstalk, reminded us of natural disasters. So I'm from the Virgin Islands, and when we were hit with Hurricanes Irma and Maria, it was really a time when you saw people who were from all different stages in life and people who didn't necessarily know one another, opening their doors to complete strangers and really coming together, even though it's a small island, coming together to help one another, to offer their time, their supplies, a warm shower, whatever it was that they could offer. And this really made me think of, I do volunteer work for the Sadhu Vaswani Center for World Peace. And one thing that we talk about a lot is about the ego and how really at the end of the day, nothing is ours. We don't own anything. And it's in these moments of crisis that you realize that you need to develop compassion and drop your ego. And it makes me think about we should really try to do this more in our everyday discourse with one another as opposed to just in these moments of crisis. And this is more so how we can achieve peace as opposed to just in these like tumultuous, heightened times.
Thank you. Yeah, just to add, there were a couple of memories that came about. One also, the discussion also became hurricanes, because during the time of Hurricane Sandy in New York City, like the entire city of Newark was without power. And actually that's when my friendship with Danilo began, because Danilo's community center became the center point for a lot of our groups to feed the city of Newark, So like every one of our Hindu and Sikh and Indian spiritual groups, we all converged at Danilo's community center to cook as a staging ground. And that is what unified us. And when we were bringing the stories of unity and feeding the world, that resonated right there, And even the images of the cow, there's a couple places I go to every couple months in our Hindu traditions to feed the cows and all that, So there's one place called the Lakshmi Cow Sanctuary. Every couple of months I do go there just to get away. It's in the Poconos, just to like recalibrate myself in nature, And then there's another friend who has a farm called Amrit Farm down in Hillsborough, New Jersey. And so the beanstalk images, he's a farmer, and he has cows, that also resonated there. And but these are places of sanctuary that help you to recalibrate your spirit, and would recommend all of you to try that when you go into nature, like the Peace Village, right? When you go into nature, then your soul cleanses, Thanks.
Thank you. Hi, my name is Casper. I'm from Haarlem. That's with double A because that's in the Netherlands. And I'm the manager of Lakshmi as well. But we talk about stories, and I have to think about my father. He's now 78, about to retire. He's a publisher from the Netherlands, and he always published stories of the stories that would never be mainstream. Always the small stories, the important stories of regions of their old colony from the Netherlands that would never be told or be heard. He went there, he gave people a platform about it, and what I think of the beauty of that is that the small stories make big changes as well. We have to make sure in a period of time we're living right now that everything has to be mainstream. The small stories are defining us as a society as well and who we are, because we cannot forget all the small stories that make us and bring us together. So you tell beautiful stories, everybody has your story. So let's tell each other the small stories as well from people that don't get to the mainstream, because they're so informative, they're so beautiful, there's so much love in that, and we cannot forget everybody. So I want to share that with you, and thank you for today.
I want to say one thing about storytelling that we often forget. I appreciate so much the generosity and wisdom and insight that everyone, this took a beautiful turn, didn't it, this conversation? But I think a lot that sometimes it's not, the story is important and the lesson of this story, but because of what you were talking about in terms of what we're kind of losing, this capacity for communication and deep listening, for imagination and really feeling the silence. When the storyteller knows that when a story is told to someone else, that they're not listening to only to the story you're telling, but the trick is that the one who's listening is actually imagining that story on their own. So, sometimes I'm in situations that say, oh, Laura, these kids have been in prison for 9 years. They're, if they're too difficult and they don't listen, you can leave, which always inspires me to think of telling long stories, because it is the most natural thing in the world. And it's almost to imagine and to feel. It repairs that part of us that we forget. So it's the engagement itself that opens the capacities to look out and recognize there's a moment when the story ends when we know we are all connected, no matter how different we are. And in the listening, there's no hierarchy. Everyone is really hearing their own story, whether it's a teeny tiny anecdote, a profound story from the San, which is some of the most really directly profound stories that exist, because they are without all of our elaborations. So every word is like a universe. So I just think that if we're going to engage in storytelling, it's good to remember that what it does is just what you're talking about, that in the listening, those parts of us that are sort of amnesic, have fallen asleep, all of a sudden just sort of a clear channel opens up, and deep listening and imagining and feeling, telling stories in a room where there were real bullies and the kids were victims, and afterwards I never mentioned bullying, but then I said, how did you like that? And the boy said, one of the big bullies said, wow, that brother was really mean. And I said, well, why do you think he was so mean? And he said, he must have been beaten when he was a child. And then when the kids went out and they came back, they were no longer sitting in three sort of ethnic groups. They were all sitting together, leaning forward. Do you have another story? Do you have another story? So part of what we can do in telling these stories is to actually keep awake the capacity, not to, that's always about the lesson or about something, but the deep capacity to imagine, which is not fantasy at all. And the deep capacity to become the other. Anyway, that's my little essay. Conversation, which could go on.
Well, I was thinking that we should mention two aspects. One is, of course, Aesop's fables are big stories that which has generated so much of good thinking all over the world. As a child,
In ancient Hindu stories.
Yeah.
Aesop's fables.
yes, let me develop my thought. And that was maybe the essential message we should take from today's discussions here. But I wanted to say that there should be also some efforts. How about this booklet, the Human Rights Declaration, for the younger people, how it can be introduced to them? That will be a wonderful thing to do that. And this was published on the 70th anniversary. And today is the 77th anniversary of the Human Rights Declaration. In 3 years' time, we will have a new volume saying 80. So every 10 years, they publish a new volume. But what I wanted to say that, as Danilo said, this year, the theme of the Human Rights Day is human rights, our everyday essentials. That is what the objective is today, that human rights involves our daily life. And that is important. And after this document, two other very important documents were published by the UN on civil and political rights and economic, social, and cultural rights. And then we are talking about now, we have already right to health, right to safe drinking water, right to education, all these things. And I remembered I was involved in an effort to create a human right to peace. So those things. So these are not individually or state control. These are to be done in a cooperative way. So we call them, this is the first generation of human rights are civil and political rights. Second generation, economic, social, and cultural rights. And third generation, which is named as solidarity rights, because international community has to have a solidarity of support to each other to achieve these rights. You cannot have a safe environment without support of everybody. So these right to environment, right to education, in countries where you need education for children, you cannot do that because you are a poverty-stricken country. So there, the international community come in to help them. So these are the three generations of human rights that we should remember. That's why we say all human rights for all. So that is what it is. Maybe spirituality is third generation human rights. No, I mean it. And I thank you for reminding me of the book. You gave me that book maybe 20 plus years ago. Yes, I still have that.
60th anniversary.
Yes. So that is, it evokes some memory in me of your bringing that book to me. And so these are the things, and I would like to end by paying a tribute to one of the big human rights defenders of the world, Cora Weiss, who left us last Monday at the age of 91. And her eternal contribution to humanity and the United Nations is the Hague Appeal for Peace, which she brought out and she engineered that conference in The Hague in 1999 to commemorate the first International Peace Conference in 1899. So that is her, and I bring this booklet to you for paying tribute to her fight for human rights anti-war, and peace. So Cora remembers to be remembered. Cora reminds us to remember her all the time because of her contribution. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I love listening to all your comments and your stories. Thank you, Ambassador, for reminding us that in this art of storytelling, the story that we're telling is a story of human rights and human dignity, and that we need to continue in all our work that great feat. Now to close us off, I'm pretty loud. To close us off, Lakshmi, would you like to do one last song? And with the mic, obviously.
The next song is a bit heavy. Well, productional, actually, also lyric-wise, but so be prepared. It's called Waking Up Slow, and it's about waking up slow in this system and realizing that it's a shitty system, and it's weird that we made it as people, and it doesn't help a lot of people. So it's about that realization. Well, just let's sing. Is it? Oh yeah, I played this song yesterday at the UN, the surf event, the anniversary of the surf. So that was huge, actually. It was a very impressive morning, and yeah, it was beautiful to play there. Yes.
Thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having us. We are improvising with technology. Night is out in paradise. Wait for a twist of the night. The god of guard, can I still run away? How can I grow if I don't dare to stay? I'm waking up slow in the way I see, in the way I bleed for all. I'm waking up slow in the way I breathe, in the way I feed my soul. Chasing dreams, but at what price? I'll show you my broken mind. I have a sight that will kill everything. Where does it end and I begin? I'm waking up slow in the way we see, in the way we play for all. I'm waking up slow in the way we breathe, in the way we feed. No, our spines are strong. No, our hearts belong. In the light is on, in paradise. Feeling you are by my side.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. That was beautiful. Where can we find more of your music?
On Spotify and on Instagram. Yeah, it's Lakshmi.
We got a
Lakshmi,
website,
like the-
LakshmiMusic.
like the goddess.
There's quite a few. I mean, I'm not very up on Spotify. I joined Spotify because
YouTube.
of you.
Oh yeah.
But when I was looking for you, there was quite a few other Lakshmi.
Yeah,
and
because
it's not the
half
same.
India
So
is called Lakshmi.
Yeah.
It's difficult. Yeah, if you look, for example, on YouTube, Lakshmi Music.
card or something like that.
Yeah,
we should.
we send something around.
Yes, let's send something around.
It's LakshmiMusic.com.
Yeah, that's the website.
That's everything you can find on.
Yeah.
And we'll make sure we send the link to you so we can spread the word, please. Yes.
Thank you. I'm gonna have Sabita say a couple closing words because we're about to wrap up and have you guys just mingle and share contacts and eat. Yeah.
Yes, well, I'm sure Rosimi said thank you to all of you.
Oh, thank you. I did. Thank you. No, seriously, thank you all for coming. It's really special when we could all come together and laugh and be together and share our energy. So really thank you for coming. It's very cold in the winter. I'm very cold outside. So just thank you for coming. Thanks, Abita, for reminding me.
But also for happy holidays. And for those of you who are familiar, our tradition from the Brahma Kumaris is to give you something sweet as a going away gift. So these are very special cookies made for all of you. So rather than just leaving them on the table, we thought, let us give it you, each one of you personally. So as our happy holidays, happy new year, little token from all of us.
Thank you.
So you will have this first, and then you go and help yourself to all the goodies that are on the table. But for Lakshmi, I know you were asking if you can sing another song or so. So if you would like, I'm sure if we would like, but if it is okay with you, you can sing another song. And once I give this out to everyone,
Let's look what we can do.
Yes. So, cookie song. So I'll start with Susan, and she's right next to me.
Cheer. 1, 2.
Yeah. Yes.
You like the way it sounds. Do you really wanna trust me while the world's burning down? Do you wanna love me? I am roaming around. Do you really wanna love me when I make annoying sounds? We gonna get it out. You got me singing like no one did. We could be alright though. We could be alright though. When the lights go out, nobody really cares. Go to the party, don't feel like being arty. I wanna feel alright. If you're looking for someone who'll take you to paradise, can I go with you? I'll treat you really nice. Baby, come and get it out. me sitting like that. If you really want it out, you got me sitting like no one did. Leave all behind your messed up mind. Climb high in clouds, fall down. We kiss, we kill, just for the sake and for the stupid thrills. You always will. We gonna get it out. You got me sitting like that.